Hey guys, this is Coral with Conscious Empowerment, and this is Sunday night, our Thrive On gathering. This gathering is really for us to come together as a community. I usually do a teaching of some sort. There's always a topic that basically my guides are like, okay, this is what we want to talk about this week. So if you look at the past classes, they've really kind of been building on, different parts of how we create, and it's really through our focus. So this week is also continuing on from there, and we're talking about expectations. And expectations are really, to make it kind of simple, it's what we believe, because we're not going to expect something we don't believe in. And I really want you guys to kind of take a look at, with what's going on in the world right now, we have a lot of things that are breaking expectations that we have had in the past. And how that is really affecting you. And I encourage you to take a moment and just sit back and kind of ask yourself, what is it that I'm expecting? Because that's what you believe. So what do I believe is going to happen? Or what do I believe about myself? If you're in a situation with somebody else, what is it that I believe, or what is it that I'm expecting of this other person? And really take a look at, I say kind of the maximums and the minimums. So what is the maximum that you expect of yourself? Is there a limit? Some areas, like I can tell you for myself, some areas I am like, oh my gosh, go. I have like unlimited expectations, like anything is possible. And then there's other areas in my life that my expectations are really low. That this is the things that I've worked on, but in areas that I really have a low expectation that I don't believe I can, or I don't believe I'm worthy. And until I really was able to look at it, first I couldn't even see it. If you're not willing to look at it, you can't see what's going on. So I've said that many, many times. When we're able to see something is when we can do something about it, because if you can't see it, you can't do anything about it. So when you take a look at the expectations that you have for, for yourself, for others, and for society as a whole, what is the maximum? What is the maximum you expect? And what is the minimum? Because when you start to see that, when you observe what it is that you're doing and how your belief system is kind of working in that moment, it's very enlightening. So, whatever situation's going on in your life right now, I encourage you to really just take a look at it and just see where you're at. Because then you can say, hey, maybe I really should believe in myself a little more. Maybe I shouldn't give so much credit to this area. Maybe I should give a little bit more credit. That way you can see where it is that you're functioning, and you can see where you need to make new choices and adjustments. And a lot of times, we have this weird ceiling that we put above us, and we say we can only have this much, or we can only go so far. When we start to look at that, it's like, wait a minute, why? And who made up that rule? And I want more than that. So again, these are the things that I had to go through and take a look at. So it's, the questions I, really kind of had to ask myself, it's like, okay, so what is it that I'm expecting? Because what I'm expecting is what I believe. And what I believe is what I'm attracting. And what I'm attracting is what I'm experiencing. So it's that chain effect. Like our thoughts create the ripple, and that's the ripple. If you can kind of see it, it's like we have an expectation, which is because of our belief, which is what we are going to attract, the frequency that we're being, that's our focus, which is going to be what we're going to experience in our life. And we are so conditioned, you guys, it's just crazy. But think about it. When something happens, what's your first reaction? It's 90% of the time it's out of fear, and it's the pessimist side of us, and it's what we have practiced. We have practiced this. We have been taught to practice this. Think about it. We are constantly shown things that are going wrong, all the stuff that's happening that's wrong in the world. Well, that's one way to look at things, but is that really attracting to us what we want? Is that really helping us create what we want? But if you look at it, it's like, so is what is happening, is that fulfilling my expectation? And when we start to look at that, it's like, okay, we start to really see where we're at. Then we have the ability to go into kind of, I call it step 2, because our reaction, it's a learned response and it can change. However, it's so programmed into us and into society. It's the first place we go. So that's step 1, is to just have a reaction. As now, people who practice this more and more and more, like, have taken my classes, are so much better at this, because then you're able to do, the more you practice, the better you get. So then step 2 becomes part of step 1. Okay. So step 2 is actually, instead of reacting, we're going to step back, be the observer. Once we observe it, once you see it, once you can see it, you can do something about it. So once you're in that observer, then you have the ability to make a new choice. And this is where your optimist can come out. And when that happens, when we make a new choice, we're expanding, and we're expanding our belief system. So when we expand our beliefs, we also have new expectations that come from that. And then instead of attracting from that old attraction point, then we have a new attraction point. And if we have a new attraction point, then we can have that new experience. So, the first thing we do is kind of beat ourselves up when we see that. But it's like, no, actually, every time you do it, you're succeeding. You're doing it right. You have an accomplishment. And a lot of times, so there's also the part of self-sabotage, because the way we can self-sabotage ourselves is, you have something that happens and we get triggered by a lot of things. Well, those triggers are actually happening from things that are being held in our energy system from past experiences. And a lot of times you have these people that they have had trauma in some way in their life, and they are unwilling to look at it. They don't want to feel that. This is a lot of PSTD because of the horrific things that people have witnessed. And then because they're unable to process, observing is a part of processing, they're protecting themselves because it hurts. It hurts. It's trauma that's being held. And when you're unwilling to look at it from the observer point of view versus the reaction of being, it's kind of like, instead of being in it, you're not in the movie, you step back and you're able to watch the movie. What happens with PSTD is people get caught in the movie and then they don't know how to move out of that. So that's like an extreme level, but even us, like on a non-PSTD level, it still comes out as self-sabotage, because if you're not willing to look at something, like you had an argument with somebody and it was a really bad argument, like this can happen, family members or really, really good friends. And there was a huge argument and it was an emotional thing, and it caused an emotional backlash. And then people don't want to look at that and they don't heal that. But then, like, years and years later, they'll go back and be like, okay, I'm willing to look at it now. And then when they're willing to look at it, they can change their mind, they can do something different, and then they heal the relationship. Okay, so that's just an example of how self-sabotage can be that I'm unwilling to look at it. So when you're willing, then things can actually change. This is literally, one of the things is the spiritual laws are really, really simple, but they're hugely profound. And if you think about it, just the act of observing, what that literally does is give you the ability to make the new choice, which is alchemy. It's taking one thing and changing it into another. So you literally can create alchemy in your life by making a new choice because you are willing to observe. That's where it's like things that seem impossible suddenly become possible. And it's through the quality of the thought. So if we think something is possible, or maybe we think that maybe we could find a way to do it, even if we are not doing it the same way as other people, the quality of that thought carries you into the quality of a new experience. So again, it's not just like, okay, what am I expecting? It's like, what is the most and what is the minimum? And just taking a look at that and being like, okay, is this really what I want? Is this not what I want? What is the most I'm expecting and what is the least I'm expecting? So, I don't know. So for some reason, husbands are coming up and I don't have a husband. So this has got to be for somebody out there. So what I'm hearing right now is there's a lot of expectations that we have on ourselves, but we also have these expectations on other people. And if you take a look at like, what is the maximum that you expect from your husband or your spouse or your significant other, or even your kids, or anybody in your family or your friends around you? But so for some reason, this is really going to husbands. But so what is do you expect him to be loving and kind and, appreciate you and treat you well? Or do you expect him to sit on the couch and do nothing, and no matter what you say, you're not going to be heard? Take a look at that expectation, because what I'm it's really crazy, but you can't expect more out of something than what you expect from it or of it. So if you don't expect that this is going to happen, a lot of times it's because you're holding that expectation. Well, this is all he can do. But then you witness somebody else who has a husband and you're like, okay, so maybe take a look at that. And, again, with kids too, it's like, okay, well, you don't expect them to clean up or you don't expect them to take care of their stuff. But is it because you're holding that expectation and then that limits? Why would they? Because you're expecting them, so they're fulfilling your expectation. If you raise that expectation and say, hey, no, you know what? I know you're capable of doing this. So what would it take? Maybe that's it, is starting a conversation to be like, okay, so how do we work this out so that, I don't know, I'm expecting more. I guess that's not really it, but it's when we expect more of them and we realize that they are capable of doing it, a lot of times that raises the bar all by itself. Because if we're holding that expectation that they can't and they won't, then when they don't and they act like they can't, they're fulfilling it for us. And they're just saying, especially women, then what happens is we go do it for them. Okay. So I hope this lands with you, because this example just was kind of not where I was thinking I was going. Like I said, the husband thing, I don't have a husband. So I hope whoever needed this receives that message. And, I think the big part of that is just that, is you can't get more out of something than what you expect of it. So what are your expectations? And that's talking about the ceiling or the minimum. So maybe I know with me, I am working on certain areas of my life and I can see where it's like, okay, I'm not really expecting a whole lot for myself. So there's not a whole lot of energy going into there. And when I changed that, it was like, okay, I'm going to choose and I'm going to focus on this, and I expect more of myself. Those areas definitely changed. So, so I hope that helps and helps to maybe bring some clarity and help, really the way that this is most helpful is when you just sit down and think about it. So think about where are your expectations lying, and not, again, not just yourself, other people you're having any kind of conversation. It could be somebody you only have a limited time with, or it could be somebody that you're dealing with all the time. But what is it that you're expecting of them? And especially right now, it's like, what are we expecting of society? And what are we expecting of ourselves within that society? Are we sitting back and doing nothing and watching the ball game? Are we actually getting in and making our voices heard? And instead of sending fear and anger, are we sending love? So I know for myself, every day I'm expecting myself to show up in love and to show up knowing that the world is changing in positive ways for everyone. And I hold that expectation across the board for myself, for society, for other people. And everybody's doing the best that they can with what they have. But I'm holding that love space so that when I come around other people, they're feeling that from me. And I have a lot, I hear things that other people are saying, but my experience, because I hold that mindset, I hold that heart space, my experience is very different. And that took a lot of practicing to really get to the point that I could do it on a consistent basis where it's like, no, I expect this of myself. I expect myself to show up with this quality so that the people around me, the people that are drawn to me, the experiences that are drawing to me are also of this quality. And when we do that, we spread that. And love and the light that love brings is so much more powerful than anything else that's going on. So ask yourself, what are you expecting of yourself? So a couple other things in closing here that I want to kind of talk about is there's a couple things that we are going to start to open up with conscious empowerment. I also have, at the beginning of this year, I had started a training, actually at the beginning of this whole COVID thing, and it was about dream interpretations. And I finished the course, and I wanted time to really develop and practice and get used to the way that this works, because it's very different than anything that I have seen of other people, and just really getting into the flow with myself. So I've been doing my own dreams. I've got people that I've been working with, people within the course and without the course, to really understand how the process and how this works. And I am going, you're going to see a post this week that I'm going to be starting offering sessions, because that is one thing that dreams are huge right now, and they're very vivid for people, and they're very confusing, and I can understand why. But also, dreams are extremely prophetic. And it's so interesting, you guys. But if you are having dreams and you really want to understand what they're telling you, how it's relating to you in your life, and really what it's trying to show you about yourself, because it's all about you, and how that, there's a lot of dreams that people have about really, really crazy things. But we dream either for ourselves or for the collective as a whole, because we are both. Okay. So, and there's a way to tell which it is that you're doing. But what I can say so far about the dreams that I've been interacting with other people and with myself is there is a lot of positive stuff that is happening. It does depend on the energy that you're holding very, very much, because that is the experience that people are having. So, the work that we're talking about in these webcasts, I don't know what you want to call them, but these classes that we've been doing on the Thursday night, the gatherings, these are really, when you start doing the dream analysis, you start really seeing how this is showing up, even more so than the stuff that's showing up in your life. But you can see how it all so the things that are happening in your life are, I don't say they're happening in your dreams, but it's interrelated. It's so interrelated. And this is this has been one of the most mind-blowing classes that I have been through. And the person that I trained with was actually trained by members of the CIA that are part of like remote viewing. And it wasn't just dream interpretations, but actually what we were being trained for was lucid dreaming. So it has been really, really neat and very enlightening. And so anyway, I'm just letting you know that I'm going to be opening that up for sessions. And also I'm putting together a class that really is going to be kind of a deep dive into, this work, and not just, we talk a lot about how, the different pieces and components, but what this class is going to offer is actually more hands-on and more in-depth of these parts, pieces, components, how they fit together, how we really can, when we understand how we're using our words, how we're using our energy fields, how we're, belief systems, the expectations, the focus, the frequency that we're creating, what it is that we're becoming, like, these are all things, but what I want to do is to be able to really get into a point that I'm helping you put them into practice. Okay. So it's not just talking about, hey, this is what you can do, and this is, what's available, but it's a lot more hands-on. And the class is also going to give us a chance to interact with each other. So it's not, we're all going through this in our each individual ways, but we're going through this together. And when we can connect with other people that are going through similar things from a similar point of view, so, people who are trying to improve their vibration and make things better and really want to create this next chapter of whatever the world is moving into, in a positive, happy, joyful, loving way, this is really to give you those hands-on tools, the nitty-gritty, the not just what I need to do, but how do I do it? Okay. And again, more in depth, because these are just short little shows that I'm doing. But I have actually a gigantic course. It's a 9-week course that when people go through it at the end of 9 weeks, it is amazing. When they started the course, they're one person. When they leave the course, they're another. And people's results are profound. Everybody's dealing with their own things. So there's, people who have relationships, abuse, alcohol and drugs, or career, you name it, right? Relationships with everything. You name it. It's like we're all going through something. We all have our things. Some have a couple things, some have a lot of things. But the nature of this class is it's an in-depth, it's a 9-week course where I walk you through everything. And I'm going to be offering it again. So, for those of you who are like, no, I really want an in-depth, I really want to be able to do this. We are going to be opening that up within the next month or so. And I will make a big announcement when we do that. But for the interim, I guess, I'm going to hold, I think it's going to be a 3-hour class. So it's going to be a one-shot that is going to, again, give you tools for right now. Give you not just like, okay, this is what you need to do, but we're going to go into, this is how you do it. And this is how A plus B equals C. This is how, it's not as hard. It's actually the steps, like we're talking tonight about changing your thought, but what you need to do is not really that hard. How you need to get to do it, and then to do it consistently, and to create a new pattern, a new vibration, which is actually creating new neural networks in your brain, which I don't want to get too in depth, but it's like we go into quantum physics. And it's not just, okay, this is what you need to do, but this is how and why. this is the guts where, and this is where things really turned on for me. This is why I teach that way, is because sometimes it's like, okay, you can hear things and catch concepts, but for me, it was when I could see it. And when I could have somebody be like, okay, this is how it works. This is what happens when you do this. This is where you have to make the tweaks. And I could see the process. That was when for me, it was like, oh my gosh, I got it. And it helped me to get out of my way, because we're constantly trying. We're trying. But if we don't have the right skills and we don't know exactly how the thing works, we're just spinning our wheels until we basically learn something new. So these are the things that I had to literally put into practice. These are the tools that I've used. These are what really made the big changes. And I've done a lot of different work in a lot of different areas, and it really culminates into this class. And I'm telling you, it's mind-blowing. You know, my client, it's so cool to see, because I have no expectations. I don't know what people are coming into the class with, but I do have the expectation that something amazing is going to happen for them, and it does every time, in whatever way that needs to happen. It's always different. It's always, usually we end up laughing about it, because it's just like, it's not something they're expecting. But that's where the change needs to happen for them. And this class really gets you into those areas so that you're able to see much more clearly your own energy, and understand how your energy is affecting that, and then how to use your energy to literally move your energy in the way that you want to, in order to create what it is that you want. And this is so possible. It is so possible. These are the things you hear. You know, I remember watching The Secret, and it was like, cool, this is awesome. Like, these things can happen. But then the question was, okay, but now how do I do that? And affirmations are usually where everybody starts out, and then they're like, okay, but that didn't work. Well, did they fulfill your expectation in the fact that they didn't work? Ooh, that was a good one to go with today's thing. But and understanding that, yeah, they didn't work because you didn't know how to work them, so they weren't being used in the way that actually does the creating. So when you learn not just what to do, but why and how you're doing it, that's when that's, you know, I always say that knowledge is power, but the knowledge really doesn't have power. It's the application of the knowledge. And what I show you how to do is how to apply it, and to keep applying it. And to, when you fall off the horse, because we all do it, I do it, I still do it, getting back, how to get back up on that. And why we're doing that, what's happening. Like, literally, I'm telling you, it's so cool the way, you know, I guess I'm teaching the class, but it's really the way they've shown me how to do this. And when I walk people through it, it's like, they're like, oh, I get that now, in a way that, and I did the same thing, but it was in a way that it's like, yeah, I wasn't seeing it for what it really was, or what the expectation. I was living under my expectations, which were pretty limiting. So raising that ceiling, and that's what we're going to be working on. So anyway, I've talked long enough. Everybody, I hope you're having a wonderful time, even and amongst the social distancing that we are still apparently under. I know every day things are changing, so, you know, be mindful, be in that heart space, send love, and I'm sending love to you. So many, many blessings. And until next week, have a wonderful, wonderful time. And I know that the highest and best things are happening for myself, for everyone that's watching this, and everyone in the world, and for all beings everywhere. Of holding that high vibration for us all to be moving through this ascension, through this, you know, ascension energy, and the changes that are happening with that in the world, that things are happening for equality for everyone. So join me in that, hold that love space. I'm sending it all to you, and I receive it back from you too. So what you put out, you get back. So have a great week, guys. We'll see you next week. Namaste.